Humanity has always retained a fascination for the unknown. For a race that constantly struggles to adapt and achieve our goals, we are surprisingly bound to our primal instincts as means to discover. In The Enigma of Amigara Fault by Junji Ito, this concept becomes overbearing and frightening to an extent merely through imagery alone rather than static text. The story revolves around two individuals who uncover mysterious human-shaped holes in the cliffside of a mountain, then evolving into something much more inconceivable. Through their obsession with the holes and the nature of human instinct, these individuals begin to crumble beneath the weight of their own inescapable desires. All of these elements and more are told solely through the advent of highly scratchy and dark line work by Ito. Strangely enough, it almost feels natural for the story to be told in this way and this way only. Through very minimal dialogue, but expressive imagery, Ito is able to capture the fear of human capability, our unbreakable primal desires, and the reality of our own mental fortitude. Humans are a pretty strong creature, despite how insignificant we paint ourselves. On the macro scale, our reaches are second to none, and this type of power is frightening to Ito. We are quite literally free to do anything we want within set rules or laws, and this is posed through Iwaki's constant reinforcement as a spectator to Yoshida. Yoshida is less a human and much more a device for Ito to explain the fear of our own freedom, but the concept grows even larger when, quote, the entire country, no, the entire world is transfixed, end quote, on the faults and their mystery. There's really no entity nor any person that can hold Yoshida back from assimilating and inspecting the holes for herself, which is exactly the point of her existence. Despite what little knowledge of the human-shaped holes she retains, her own freedom to enter and inspect the holes scares her to the point where she would rather risk death than not be with the hole that was predestined for her. The scale of this phenomenon also plays a large role into the progression of the idea. Since the holes quite literally have sockets for every single human and give off the aura that people should come into them, it's not really a surprise that most people take that as a threat, mystery, or urgency. The ambiguity of the holes cannot be understated, and with that comes unbelievable fascination from humans so innately free to become constricted to rigidness. Early civilization is by far the easiest factor that helps us understand why we even bother with the pursuit of entities not of our grasp. We venture to different countries, take their land, fruit, people, mostly because it's something new and unknown. And whether one may be conscious of this fact or not, this idea about our species is directly attributed to our advancement and success. In the story, Yoshida is consumed by the desire to explore that void, something completely unbeknownst by anything she has ever known. She states, I'm going to die in there inside of that hole. I'm going to have to enter that hole. As we learn more about Yoshida, we come to the understanding that she doesn't want to be alone. Her vivid expressions give the impression that she is truly frightened of the idea and cannot bear to live in that reality. But even despite all the things she says and all the emotional investment she gives into a complete stranger, her instincts are just too powerful. This conclusion to her character was rather obvious, but still jarring in some ways, especially in the foreshadowing of her counterpart, Iwaki. Something that brings even more interest to Yoshida is the idea that Iwaki's constant reinforcement of not entering that hole goaded her even farther into that void of no return. Iwaki is almost forcibly creating an ominous atmosphere for the hole, and through this piquing her interest to explore that idea even further. It's a rather strategic and solemn moment developed by Ito. The character's facial expressions say more to this fact than just the dialogue, but in the midst of the situation, this close and critical decision could have only been made effective to the setting in this fashion. Weakness often leads to tragedy in dire circumstances. There isn't a lot of nuance to how weakness is portrayed in Ito's story, but it's done to an extent that doesn't really require multiple angles. The human-shaped holes are almost godlike in nature for their power over the individual. Iwaki is immediately compelled right after he witnessed the horror of Yoshida's exit to enter his own hole, and of his own volition, exclaiming quite similarly to her dilemma, "This is my hole." The feeble mind of Iwaki is more convincing as authentic than if the story had shifted to his rejection of the hole. The frightening imagery of his consumption through the holes was foreshadowed constantly with no end, so it only seemed natural he would follow suit right after Yoshida. But in this case, Ito wanted not to highlight the desire of Iwaki, but more the lack of control he retains in his despair after experiencing tragedy. On the final page of the story, the realization comes full circle, solemnly entering the void and leaving deranged and scarred for what curiosity had done. Not even being referred to as human any longer, but just something, or it, because of the fragility of our psyche. Primitive instinct is not quite the defining factor that our existence is made out to exemplify. Rather, it serves to combat modern existence, which is what Iwaki retains in his nightmares. So when he finally enters that hole, which is almost sexual in nature, it helps fulfill Freud's interpretation of the id of our primal desires. We are drawn to something like the holes in the most compelling way because of our unconscious desire to constantly feed information. To combat this idea would be no more than futile and counteractive to that end. After closer inspection, the characters, although adults, feel like children in the way they conduct themselves. Owaki is constantly trying to justify the safety of his counterpart, and in this sense he is trying to vilify Yoshida's behavior in a way that will protect her and prevent horror. But the strong truth of the matter is that Yoshida is prone to drown in her own thoughts, as shown by her constant dwelling on the past, which involves her parents and friends, making her lonely. Since it was Owaki's conscious superego that attempted to thwart Yoshida's actions, she was meant to enter that hole from the moment she laid eyes on it, and in turn, Owaki, since it was his conscious rebellion of the idea, felt the shame of Yoshida's decision and entered the hole himself as a way to repent for his actions. The unfortunate truth of our species is that we are just apt to fail. No matter how many successes we retain, our overwhelming ability to fail far outweighs anything we can think to accomplish. In the Enigma of Amigara Fall, we just learn to accept our failures as humans and give in to the darkness within, letting it consume us in more ways than not. As hard as we try to forget or break free from our instincts and try to substitute it with convenience, it sticks with us anyway. The ironic part about this story is not quite the realistic elements of its message, but rather how authentic its imagery feels compared to its narrative. The unworldly drawings of Ito do more than static text could ever hope for. There really just isn't a substitute imaginable to build the overwhelming atmosphere and tone that was created without any words necessary. Through an expert strategy in storytelling, Ito manages to hit all of the right chords to produce a remarkable dissection of our human condition, desires, and fortitude that is claustrophobic, yet liberating to witness.